head coaches. Got it. All right. Head coaches. What's up, YouTube? Today I am joined by the one and only Eddie Fitzgerald.
Hey, John, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. I'm very excited to talk about the NFL with you today.
For me, it's the afternoon.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a time difference. Like it's what happens. It's what we got to do to make these things work. But you know, I'm always down to talk some sports with you.
All right. Thank you for being on. Let's start off with the Denver Broncos. I think that's going to be first on the list for head coaching vacancies.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos got rid of Vic Fangio. Teddy Bridgewater didn't get it done. They still got Drew Lock in the mix. They are in a very difficult AFC West where realistically, three of the teams could have made the playoffs in the division. Only two ended up making it based upon how everything shaked out standings wise. But you know, that's
If you told me at the beginning of the season the Broncos were the only ones at week 18 who didn't have a chance in the playoffs or were in playoff contention, I'd have laughed in your face.
Yeah, I mean,
they started off 3-0.
Yeah, they had high expectations too, and it looked like Teddy B was gonna be a good filler quarterback who can get them places, maybe not all the way to the end, but get them close enough. But it also seems that Fangio's not the guy there. It's an interesting organization. You still got guys like Jerry Jeudy too.
Yeah, they have good wide receivers: Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, the speedster out of Penn State.
Tim Patrick, who they signed this year on a nice contract. They have a good receiver core locked up. They have a good they got Noah Fant, who they drafted. They have Javonte Williams, who they drafted. They have Melvin Gordon, who they signed, who's probably gone because Javonte's been so good. Like this Broncos team is intriguing. It's just a really tough job.
I think their offensive line needs to be bolstered up a bit. And they need to help Drew Lock on his accuracy.
Yeah, I think somebody to come in and sort of revitalize this, revitalize the offense. They drafted Pat Surtain in the draft in the first round. He's been phenomenal this year, one of the best corners selected in the draft this year. And I think that
the all-pro team, actually.
Yeah, like he's been top tier. He's been elite straight from the jump, and you don't get that often. So I think that this defense is good enough to win with an offensive head coach, and I think it's time to bring in somebody in the mile high who can get it done offensively. I think that's Eric Bieniemy for me.
Yeah, the offensive coordinator from the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think you could just take a flyer on it.
Yeah, he's a great offensive coordinator. Helped Patrick Mahomes. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got a really great resume from the past 5 years from just the teams that he's the offenses that he's coached from the past 5 years. Most of which are elite.
Yeah, no, I would say so, and he's had top tier talent to work with, and I would say the Broncos would be a step down for that, and which is why I say that it's a bit of a challenge because it's going to be harder for those coaches to get it done.
Yeah. But if you can, I think Eric Bieniemy is their guy. If he gets through the first season, I think he's got a crystal road down the line for him as the head coach.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see what that front office wants to do. John Elway, I'm still convinced that as long as John Elway is alive, the Broncos will never have a good quarterback because Peyton Manning got too close. Peyton Manning got too close to becoming the best Broncos quarterback of all time, and he got scared, and now he just wants to hold the title of best Broncos quarterback.
I think I would make a case for Peyton Manning being the best Broncos quarterback.
We'll see. I don't know. Late career Peyton Manning, but that's a different conversation for another video another time.
Yeah. But the Broncos, Eric Bieniemy, front office for the Broncos, if you're listening, heads up.
Absolutely.
Miami Dolphins now fired Brian Flores. Don't completely understand it. Don't halfway understand it. Flores was building something special in South Beach.
Yeah, I think ultimately you saw the report that came out a couple of days ago where Flores said something to the effect of to Tua Tagovailoa, if I knew you were going to be this bad, I would have drafted Mac Jones. And that's like that's an issue. He's been noted as a fan of Deshaun Watson. Watson's trade rumors sort of really got to a head this year, especially with his allegations. I don't know whether or not he wants to go to Houston, which we'll talk about later, pending everything going on over there. But Flores, you're right, is a good head coach, and I think a lot of teams are going to want Flores because of the past success that he's had. But I think a lot of it
came to a playoff berth, but he came close back-to-back years. 2 straight winning seasons, coming in at 9-7 and 9-8. Yeah,
it's tough because I think that they want somebody to build around Tua. I think that's sort of the argument that is being made here.
I think their guy, the guy that they should go with, the Dolphins, Doug Peterson.
Yeah, you think Doug Peterson would be a nice choice for I see. There we go. You gotta put a little Eagles hat on to represent. I understand. But no, look, Peterson would be an interesting one. Somebody who you could definitely market to the fan base as somebody who's been to the playoffs before. But I think also Peterson's gonna have his pick of the litter here when it comes to vacancies, because out of most recent head coaches that are fired that are starting to look around for jobs again, Peterson's got a good resume with the Super Bowl.
Right. John Gruden, obviously, but I think he's going to be out of a job.
Yeah, I don't think any team is touching Gruden anytime soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Dolphins are in a position where they sort of have to bank on Tua being the guy. It's do or die probably this year or next year for Tua. He's been injured. He's had a lot of issues. You as an Eagles fan would understand what it's like to have a quarterback that has those injury problems. That is it better to just cut ties with them and look for somebody that's more consistent? Which is why Flores started Fitzpatrick for most of the season. And when they had that winning season, the Dolphins rattled off wins late in the year because they benched Tua for Fitzpatrick.
Right. I think they have a shot. They have a good backup in Gardner Minshew if the Eagles are willing to trade something for Minshew. And not even as a backup. I think that Minshew has proved himself as a good starter, filling in for Jalen Hurts against the Jets earlier this season.
I mean, I was more referring to Carson Wentz in the situation where it's just it's too much, where he gets hurt and the team is just we need to find something that's more consistent. We need to look in a new direction because you're not getting it done, and when you're not good enough to warrant keeping you on the team. And right now, Tua, yes, had a good end of the season, but he has not put together a complete 17 games, even though now we're playing 18 games. He's yet to put together a full season for me, John. So I honestly, I think Flores probably wanted out to begin with, and the management didn't want him there. And so I think it's an amicable decision to part ways, honestly, because Miami's got issues.
Yeah. But
that's not to discredit how good their defense has been or Jalen Waddle either.
I think moving over to Jacksonville, I think Flores would be good in Jacksonville. Sticking on to Brian Flores, same climate. I think Jacksonville just needs a better head coach. Urban Meyer was obviously very bad with them. But Flores, he's got I think if he can develop Trevor Lawrence a bit more, James Robinson, he's got Travis Etienne next year, if he can stay healthy. And then he's got DJ Chark, LaVisca Chenault. He's got a good wide receiving core.
Yeah, I mean, but don't get it twisted. This, aside from Josh Allen, and bits of Trevor Lawrence this year and James Robinson, this team was bad. This was a bad team. But honestly, this team was injury ridden. They had a lot of COVID issues. They beat the Colts in the final week of the year somehow, and that was huge for them for morale, I think. But
for morale, but not for draft stock.
Yes, certainly. They actually, it didn't matter for them. They secured the number 1 pick because Detroit won.
Oh yeah, they beat the Packers.
Yes, and so Detroit cost themselves the draft position. However, back to Jacksonville. This is to me where Doug Peterson fits the best. To me, Trevor Lawrence is very Carson Wentzy. I think that they have very similar play styles. I think that the two of them are very they have a lot of unique pocket presence and ability to make big plays and just like for the plays that Carson Wentz makes, and you're like, wow, it's the same idea with Trevor Lawrence, just nobody watched him this year. So I think that if you put somebody like a Peterson there who's had a Carson Wentz type, I think it would be good.
Yeah, but Carson Wentz obviously didn't work out in Philly
because he was hurt.
Trevor Lawrence wasn't hurt.
Right, because he didn't have a good head coach. One was hurt, one didn't have a good head coach.
Fair.
And when Peterson had Carson Wentz before he was hurt, Wentz was the MVP candidate that season, competing with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So I think it would make sense for Jacksonville to look at Doug Peterson, and Doug Peterson would take a low-risk scenario and get to play in Florida.
And Doug Peterson also had some pretty good running backs in the backfield that year. Corey Clement had his best season of his career, and he's got James Robinson, who is, in my opinion, a top 5 running back in the AFC.
Okay, I can get behind top 5 in the AFC for that. And again, as you mentioned, ATN coming back. I think this Jacksonville team needs a lot of work. So I think getting a coach that's got Super Bowl experience that you can commit to for a couple of years to sort of build up the culture. He's already stuck around for one rebuild before. It's been like, to me, that makes the most sense. That makes the most sense. That's where I have Jacksonville.
Yeah. That's fair points. I still think I'm there. They should go with Flores, but people are gonna disagree. Well, let's move over from Florida up to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer out of here is his 10th season as a Viking, I believe.
Yep.
Had some playoff experience. Couldn't get his kickers to do what he wanted. Same thing with Urban Meyer. I don't know if that's a bit early. But still, His kickers couldn't do it. Got blown out by Philly in the NFC Championship in 2017. Every time a Philly person or Philadelphia is mentioned, I'm just gonna put on the hat.
You just throw it on there. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Zimmer's out. I think that other teams would go as Zimmer, but as an offensive coordinator or as a coordinator. I don't think anybody's gonna pick him up as a head coach.
Probably not. I don't also probably think he gets a job. I don't think he wants a coordinator position. Maybe if anything, he'd get a defensive coordinator position somewhere. But this is Mike Zimmer. This is like an old head coach. Like this isn't somebody who goes back into the coordinator carousel. Look at Jason Garrett. I would say this dude waits a year and then finds something else in the system, sort of like Peterson did this year.
Right. Like I feel like there are gonna be some teams who are gonna get their coaches out in the next year or so. Like after the season, if it work out.
Always. It's the coaching carousel, baby.
I like Matt Rule, but I think he's out of here if he can't make it work in Carolina next year.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit too early, but they haven't been able to find their quarterback. But everything else has been pretty good, and they've had 2 years of an injured Christian McCaffrey.
To stay healthy, also.
Yeah, exactly. So there's things to there's a lot of different factors on the Rules situation in Carolina. But back to Minnesota, I think Minnesota has a lot of issues, and to me is one of the worst spots that anybody could possibly go this offseason.
It's like you're gonna probably have a 1-year season in Minnesota after this season if you can't make it work.
Maybe, yeah. But also I think that the front office has to take a look at what they have, what's on the books, and what they're gonna have to pay for, and what they're eventually gonna have to pay Justin Jefferson, right? Like this team is pretty much at its peak. A lot of guys in their prime. Nobody's really that young on this defense. The only real young guy that they have since they let Stephon Diggs go is Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, and they locked up Cook, and Cook is in his prime, and he's absolutely phenomenal. But at this point, what can the Vikings do to get better? Like trade Kirk Cousins? Like that's it.
Trade Cousins
because his contract is of how much money you're paying him. So like you gotta rebuild, you gotta retool. Like where does this team? What moves can this team make that isn't tangential? That doesn't put them just an inch above? That doesn't put them into the championship conversation?
Yeah. I don't know. They're gonna need a heck of a head coach for that.
Right, which is why I think that it's a terrible position to be in. Like I wouldn't want to interview in Minnesota.
No. I mean, you could get a college head coach, but nobody's leaving like the college coaches that I would think of that they would interview. I don't think they'd want to leave their spot for Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, unless you want to be a head coaching candidate and have the only thing that would make sense is if you bring in a defensive guy who can make things work. I mean, a little bit of maybe some Bruce Arians has rubbed off on Todd Bowles, and this is the guy that you think can help solidify the defense. Because let's be honest, Kirk Cousins can't beat a team over 500 because his defense gives up 20 plus points a game. He's got to score 3 touchdowns a game in order to win. And that's why you need to sign a guy like Dalvin Cook so he can have at least a touchdown or 2 a game. Otherwise, you're not going to put up enough points. The Vikings defense is in shambles, in my opinion. I think you need a good defensive head coach and an offensive coordinator that's flashy.
Yeah.
And like that's so to me, I think maybe Todd Bowles makes sense coming out of Tampa Bay.
That they should try to take the Philly head coach, not head coach, not Sirianni. They're not taking Sirianni. They can't take Sirianni. I think take the defensive coordinator from Philly, and you got yourself a pretty good head coach.
Yeah, Jim Schwartz.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Schwartz is happy here. When I say here, I mean, I think Jim Schwartz is happy in Philly. I don't think that he's been he's been too bad. Did he get moved off when Sirianni came in? Because they got rid of Peterson.
What?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Jonathan Gannon. I apologize. I mean, if you want to cut that out, we can. But
Words, I was a bit confused. Gannon, yeah.
Yeah. So, but
I saw that.
no, I don't like Gannon as a defensive coordinator. With you, to be honest, I mean, think about yes, the Eagles have had a good last couple of weeks, and the defense has played better, but
Slay had a good season, unlike last year.
Sure, Slay had a good season, but that's good players can be good regardless of good coaches. I think that's clear. But I want to say that
Javon Hargrave having a breakout season.
Yeah. Sure. If you want to go that route, we can go that route as well. But think about this defense, the beginning of the season, let up in a 3-game stretch over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was a pretty bad stretch, but I think that was the stretch where we played the Chiefs, the Panthers, and then the Bucks.
I mean, we'll talk about the Eagles a little bit later, but that's where I'm at with when it comes to the Eagles defense. So I don't think Gannon would be a good pick here, but I hear what you're saying, that they need a defensive guy.
Yeah. Moving over to Vegas, I was about to say Oakland.
Yeah, right.
Where I'm just outside of right now. Boom.
Good to go.
So Vegas needs a head coach, obviously, with the firing of Gruden.
Yeah, and they are in the playoffs right now, and that's sort of something they'll have to deal with post their matchup.
60 years to make a head coaching switch halfway through the season and still make the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's what's weird, is that this team sort of rallied around and they don't quit. They've played a lot of overtime games this year. They ended in overtime this season. They started this season with an overtime victory, against the Ravens.
They took almost the entire overtime. They almost tied against the Chargers, but the Chargers took a stupid timeout with 2 seconds left to basically ruin their playoff hopes.
Yes, correct.
That was so dumb.
Yeah, I would also say that the Raiders, to me, are a very intriguing destination. I think that this is a team that they could trade Derek Carr this offseason because he got to the playoffs. And this is somebody that has had injury problems, is good when he's healthy, but he's not necessarily what you need to get deep in the postseason.
Texas, actually, as a Houston Texan.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
I think he would be a pretty good starter as a Houston Texan.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be cool in Houston, but I think he belongs on a fringe playoff team. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Minnesota. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Washington. I wouldn't mind seeing him. I think Chicago's going to rock with Justin Fields, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in Denver. To me, those are going to the division rivals a little bit out there, but that's sort of where it's at. I would also
I
say,
think that New York would also be a good fit for him too.
yeah, I think the Giants. I think I think
Daniel Jones is going to be out of here soon.
yeah, I think he's probably done next season. I thought this season was going to be his last year, but he got hurt too much to have that definitive call. It's too much gray area for him. Anyway, back to the Raiders. They do have some cap issues. They have a lot of people who they need to pay. They have paid Darren Waller a lot of money. They'll pay Jacobs a lot of money. They still have the Carr contract. So to me, I think you got to trade Derek Carr after this season. Find your next quarterback.
A lot of money.
Yeah, like they have to pay. They have to shed money somehow. And this team was able to acquire picks early on in the John Gruden era, and some of them have hit, some of them have not. But this is a young enough team on a cheap enough contracts right now.
Some
you're
of
gonna
them
have to pay them later.
Hit and run.
Yeah. Yes, and I would also say that that you have to pay you're gonna have to pay these cheap good players soon. So you got to get rid of your old money while you have a star in Darren Waller on your offense.
They have a good defensive line, but they're gonna need to get paid soon enough because they don't have their contracts are expiring soon. I believe Carl Nassib and Max Crosby are.
Well, Crosby, Nassib got the deal. Nassib is one of the only ones who is locked up. Crosby, I think, should be eligible for his 5th year this year. If not, he may have already gotten his extension. But like what I'm saying is, it comes down to this team is, again, very similar to the Vikings, sort of come to its natural conclusion. Like where do the Vikings go to get better? I think you got to blow stuff up.
Obviously better than the Vikings.
Are they though? Are they though? Or did they get a better break in the AFC in schedule wise? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, they're a tougher team and they win closer games. And I think that's because Derek Carr's a better quarterback than the Vikings. I think if Derek Carr's on the Vikings, then I think the Vikings are in the playoffs. Because I think Derek Carr can win shootouts. I don't think Kirk Cousins can.
I think that's a stretch. I don't think that I think the Vikings will need a better offensive line.
I think they already have a pretty decent offensive line. I mean, Dalvin Cook's a top 5 rusher when he's healthy every single season.
But is that because he's good, or is it because he has a good offensive line?
It's a combination of both. But like, I think it comes down to the ability that when you go down in games, you can't run the ball with Dalvin Cook. You have to throw. And as sad as it is, Kirk Cousins, time and time again, doesn't deliver in the clutch.
Yeah.
Derek Carr does.
As is shown by the many overtime games. Yeah.
So I think that's why I would say that if you swap the two situations right now, the way we talked about the Vikings is how we would have talked about the Raiders, and the way that we talked about the Raiders, the way we would have talked about the Vikings. If just those two players are switched, I think they're both around the same spot as franchises. So I think you need to either go all in and make some big free agent signings, work your cap, trade, or blow it up and work from the fringe and hope your draft picks hit.
So either rebuild or trade.
Yeah. I think that both these teams after this season are at the natural conclusion, and they have good pieces that they can build around for the future. But I think it's coming to a point where you either realize that or you don't.
Yeah. One team that isn't at their conclusion is our next one, the New York Giants. They have been ravaged by injuries this year. Upset the Eagles also. I'm not putting on the hat. By injuries, I mean Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and Kenny Galladay and Daniel Jones and Mike Glennon and a lot of these guys, and Xavier McKinney.
their entire offense, to half their defense.
Yeah, they had a lot of problems, man. Like this team was supposed to be pretty good. Also, Kenny Galladay,
They
no
also
touchdowns this year.
They also had a cancer. Yeah, they had one guy who had a cancer. His name was Jason Garrett. They got rid of him, luckily.
Yes, they did have a cancer in the locker room with Jason Garrett. I would say that he was really I would say he was more of an infection. That would be a way more accurate thing. I think cancer is a little bit too much, maybe, or maybe not good enough. I think infection just has the right feel for Jason Garrett. And I would say, but their offense then improved after they got rid of Garrett. And so that leads me to believe that this team can be good, but this team can only go as far as Daniel Jones. And so I think that, yeah, no.
Dang, I had him for a second.
Yeah, no, running backs don't win championships. Unfortunately.
Running back.
No, running backs don't win championships.
Oh, wait, no, Jim Brown had an insane quarterback.
Like it's every like that's just where it goes. Like running backs are expendable. Like you can win Super Bowls with running backs by committee. As the Patriots, as the Eagles. Which
is why they don't get paid.
Yes, exactly. Because they're not as valuable. I would say that when it comes to the Giants, again, this team only goes as far as Daniel Jones. And if Daniel Jones time and time again lets you down or is injured, it's time to move on. To me, this season was the last season for Jones, but he got too hurt. There was too much gray area for Daniel Jones, and maybe he comes back and is better, and it's going to be okay again. But like, we'll be at like around 3 or 4 years since he was drafted. And that's I don't think you give him the 5th year. I don't know if you pick him up.
It's also that you don't draft quarterbacks from basketball schools.
Yeah, he impressed Gettleman on the pro day. That was it, really. Like that's what the report that came out. And now Gettleman's gone too.
And Judge is gone.
Yeah, Judge and Gettleman, which is what we're talking about. And I think that ultimately with Judge and Gettleman, it's 2 separate issues. Clearly they want to find the GM first, and then that person will have the coaching search. To me, I think that this really screws them. I think Gettleman should have retired like earlier in the season if they knew that he was going to do this. That gives them opportunities to already do interviews, because realistically, right, you got to get a head coach on the dock. You got to get that head coach to then agree on their coaching staff. Then you got to get all your scouting to that head coach, and then they have to tell you who they've been scouting, who they like in the draft, and now you're waiting. But all of a sudden, it's free agency, and how are you as a front office that just got hired expected to do all of this by the time it's April and you're on the clock with a top 15 pick?
2 top 10s, actually.
Yeah, 2 top 10 picks.
Which is why I don't want to be a head coach or a GM.
It puts you in a tough position, John.
I'd much rather be an announcer like you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know who would work well in New York. I think Vegas should just stick with Bisaccia. But New York is just a cesspit of ruined talent, all in one. Talent wasted.
I disagree. I think I think that the Giants can be really, really scary. That defense plays harder than any team in the NFL. Like I genuinely believe that. And
I'm more scared of the 49ers defense.
Yeah, the 49ers defense is good. That Giants defense is tough because they know that their quarterback can't score more than 16 points a game. That's about on average, like Daniel Jones's points per game. Like they know they have to hold them to like 14 in order for them to have a chance to win. Like, when's the last time you saw Daniel Jones in a shootout? Like, I don't know what else to say, but like that defense is really good. That offense has talent around it. They need the right guy manning the helm. They need their offensive line to get it
By the
together.
way, I thought it was the running back who led a team to a championship.
Oh, okay.
Walter Payton
Sure.
did nothing in the Super Bowl, but he's the only reason they were there, and we all know it.
Yeah, you can get them to the Super Bowl. You can have like I would say that Devontae Freeman was a top 5 running back that season. The Falcons made it to the Super Bowl, and if the Falcons didn't blow the lead, then he wouldn't be the reason they won the Super Bowl, but he's the reason they got them there. But ultimately, like in the game, like that Chicago team had a lot more pieces than just sweet feet.
Yeah.
Especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh boy, that defense.
Anyway, speaking of Chicago,
we got Chicago.
How do you feel about it? How do you feel about getting rid of Matt Nagy? I'll throw it to you. So I'm tired of starting with all of them, John. You gotta give me some thoughts. I want to hear what you think.
Matt Nagy. Matt, we all saw this one coming from about last year. And by all I mean all. Everybody wanted him out. They were chanting fire Nagy at his son's high school football game, which is harsh. But obviously it didn't work out in Chicago. Also didn't have good kickers, like his Minnesota counterpart with double doink. Hold on, gotta get the hat. But yeah, 2020, he has playoff experience. I think you could get him as a quarterback's coach. But it looks like he just gave up on Justin Fields by starting Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I think he just wanted to save his job. I think he really was like, if I can get to the playoffs, if I can just will myself in. Because Chicago was up, like they were close-ish if they had won
one point of the season.
Right. Ultimately, they fell behind. That offensive line was awful. Really, I'm just gonna say that.
Plain and simple.
Justin Fields runs for his life every single play. It's really tough to watch because I think in moments when he has time and when
Andy Dalton, Andy Dalton cannot run, so they just let up sacks.
Yeah, that's what came down. But Dalton could get the ball out quicker, could make decisions quicker, which is why they went with him.
Against the Bills, it was a really big hit on Justin Fields. I thought he was injured after that and wouldn't be able to start in the first game of the season. Didn't start in the first game of the season despite being healthy anyway.
Yeah, no, and Maggie sort of teased it. They were like, "Ooh, maybe we'll bring out Justin Fields. Maybe we got some special Justin Fields packages." And they sort of he sort of bent the knee to what he didn't want to do. Like, if you think about this guy, Justin Fields was not necessarily his quarterback, I would say. If we think about the quarterbacks that Nagy had with Trubisky and Nick Foles and then Andy Dalton. And now I think that if you're looking at this team, Chicago made the playoffs last year.
They missed out the year before, and then they made it before that.
Yes. I would say that like the Chicago team is should be getting to that second spot in the NFC North, but they need the pieces on the offense to get together, and they need somebody who believes in Fields. And I thought Fields was great. He was my number 2 rookie quarterback, I believe, behind Mac Jones. And maybe Trey Lance, but like I didn't see enough of Trey Lance. Like he started the last week of the season.
He went to an FCS school, so.
Well, yeah, no, I didn't mean that. I meant like this, like in terms of his overall snap percentage. Like Jimmy G was a starter this year in San Francisco, and there were stretches when he was hurt and Lance was in, and Yeah, I just didn't get a chance to see a lot of 49ers games. I saw more Bears games this year, and
I
from what
didn't
I saw
watch
from
any
Fields.
football except for Sunday night, and the one Sunday night game that wasn't the Eagles that I watched was Carson Wentz going up against the 49ers. But that was the game that Jimmy G started,
Right.
despite having a finger injury. So yeah, that's another sign of mistrust. But we're not gonna talk about San Francisco until tomorrow. So
Yeah.
back to the Bears. Yeah, mistrust is by Matt Nagy is ultimately what got him fired.
Yeah, I think that the front office and the distrust of Nagy and just the belief that this team was done. This team was bad. This team couldn't do anything, and it it felt like that all season long. Like it just felt really depressing to watch the Chicago Bears. I think that this team has potential. They draft pretty okay for the most part.
Not
We'll
like
see if
Howie
Justin
Roseman.
Fields is the guy. Whoa, I think there's a couple of picks that you can knock Howie on. I think that there's a lot of other picks that you can knock every GM on. And
I'm not on the hat. I don't like Howie Roseman. I want him out.
that to me is the worst take that you've said in the past 41 minutes that we've been doing this. Like,
All right, but I don't like him.
why?
He took Arthega Whiteside over Justin Jefferson, or Rager over Jefferson. He took someone who hasn't played well over
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Jaguars took Trevor Lawrence over Mac Jones, and Mac Jones in the playoffs. Like,
Yeah, but
I get that. Like, I get that. Like, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, right? He does that, and he messes up the wide receiver situation in that draft. But to me, I think he plays it perfectly in the next one. Like, yes, could the Eagles have stayed at 6 and taken Waddle? Sure. But now the Eagles have 3 first-round picks, Devontae Smith.
I'd rather have Devontae over Waddle.
I don't know. I think Waddle's really nasty. I had Waddle over Smith. I had Chase, Waddle, Smith as my top 3. And the Bengals were clearly going 5 with Chase. So it made sense to trade back.
A better blocker than Penei Sewell.
No, I mean I think the minute they traded back from 6 to 12, they knew that Jamar Chase was off the board. I think that Howie Roseman wanted Jamar Chase. I think that was clear.
Yeah.
Chase so I don't think you fault him. I think he had all 3 of them ranked at the top spot. Like I don't think he had I think it's just it's Chase and then it's Waddle and Smith. And so then I think if you trade back, you get the receiver you want anyway.
Yeah. Smith still had more receiving yards than Waddle, so I'm holding it against him.
Reception record.
I'm holding it against you, I mean.
Look, man, but also he signed Jordan Mailata to that great contract. He's brought in Jordan Howard, who's been pretty effective. And whether you like it or not, I mean, he's the one who hired Sirianni. So if you like Sirianni, he's there. Drafted Miles Sanders, drafted Jalen Hurts, drafted Dallas Goedert, signed Dallas Goedert, and traded Zach Ertz at the right time.
Yeah, we're getting a bit carried away.
I know, but listen, you asked for it. That's my take for you. You could yes, you can hold the Justin Jefferson thing and the JJ Arcega-Whiteside picks, but between the numbers, Howie Roseman is a great general manager.
Yeah. All right, Texans.
Yes, sir. I will say that Houston has an interesting situation with Davis Mills. I say hold on to him. I say that there's no good quarterback in this year's draft, unless you want to spend a second or third round pick on a rookie QB.
That's a weird draft for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't think that it's worth it, especially when Davis Mills has performed the way he's performed in the back half of the season. I think giving him the confidence of the starting role, the team behind him, has sort of helped build the culture, especially in this post-Deshaun Watson phase. I don't like Houston as an organization. I think that they've had a lot of issues in the past, and I think that they have sort of just not gotten better. They're just continually bad, and they continue to make terrible decisions and quick snap judgments. And I don't know why anybody would want to be the head coach of the Houston Texans.
Right. I thought they had something wrong with Deshaun Watson, but shut down because of the allegations. But yeah, Houston is a funky place to go.
But sure, yes, I agree with that. They don't have a lot going for them. They have a lot of money tied up in places that it probably doesn't need to be, and they don't really have a lot of good pieces. I can't think of any real bright spots other than a couple of defensive standoffs this year.
I can think of. Oh wait, right. I thought you meant players.
Yeah, no, I mean players.
Oh, Brandon Cooks.
Sure, I think that Brandon Cooks is fine, but like he's not like a piece that you're building around. He's a piece that you have.
He was, in my opinion, the best offensive player on that Houston team.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that speaks to how terrible this Houston team is.
Yeah. Houston's best fit would just be an interim head coach for right now, at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's some pieces in the secondary. This feels like if Todd Bowles wants to get a fresh start, do it. But again, depending upon what happens with Deshaun Watson, they could easily get Brian Flores as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 Yes. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about the playoffs. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe and hit the like button so that the Eagles can win, please. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you for having me, John.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you soon.